Going to continue from the points I stopped yesterday. Not gonna read chant today. I'm just gonna try to focus. So what I'm gonna try to do is to build the scene. I'm gonna copy the code from the editor and put it on the function from one of the projects that I created there. To try to build the editor layout from source code using C++, then open the layout from the editor and try to understand how it works. And I think I'm probably gonna do Anki first because I forgot to do it today. But I'm just gonna do probably 10 or not that much. It's kind of hard to see. Is the reflection? So let me do some Anki. I think for each, like this. I'm back on the PowerShell one now, and I forgot a couple of them. Because I felt that the other one was getting repetitive. I was doing the one for triangles and basic trigonometric functions, or yeah, not really sure how to say that. Sure. I think it's equal, probably. I don't remember if there is this string or not. Oh no, yeah, stop. There is this string. I don't remember this one. I also don't remember, but I'm not really sure if it's something like this. Save pipeline output strictly more. Yeah, I don't remember. It's good. That's false. That's true. You just done this one. Oh, so this is the one that is false. So it is kind of confusing. So 3 equals to the string 3, but string 3 doesn't equal the 3. This one is kind of confusing because I think that is an error message, but I don't remember really well. I think it's something like this. Cannot call method on a no value expression. I don't remember. Sometimes it bugs, so that this time it didn't show here whether or not it's correct. It's something like this. Maybe the order is different. Or it could be win, then slash. Also, the order is different, but it was correct. So this one is false, I think. This is the one that is false. Yeah. It's 32. It's probably select more objects. Don't remember if this has the pipe operator or not. It's probably select object and list. I know that the end is like this first tree. But I don't remember if there is a pipe operator and which one comes first, if it's select object or list. Okay. So I think this is probably enough. So let me open the thing from the editor. So I have to create the first scene from the editor. Then I create a folder. So since last time, the only thing that I did was to finish this code here, and it seems to be working now. So I had one problem, which is I forgot to change the name here that I put here. So it wasn't adding the file generated from the build system. And for that reason, it was giving me an error when I was trying to call the function here. And also I was getting an error because I wasn't the path here, I wasn't sure which path to put, but it seems that if you're gonna use relative paths, then it is a path from the whatever path the SC sub is at. So the SC sub is considered as the root. As far as like it seems that it works this way now, because when I tried to put the path here from the root of the project, it didn't work. So I think that if you use Ascom script to run other Python files to help on the build system, then it's going to assume that the root is from that path, whatever the file is at, and yeah, you pass the relative path there. So I have to add this shoe according to the way that I'm doing here. I'm not really sure if I should change the name of this file. So that is something else instead of register projects, because it's not really, I'm not going to really register the project. Just going to And also I separated the declaration of the function to this file here, because I thought that this may be the issue initially, but I'm gonna leave it like this now because I think it is better to separate. And I haven't tested yet when I have, I only tested like this when I don't have any projects there that have the register and the SC sub file. So we'll see if it works. I created, this one is the one that it has, I put the layout from the code, from the editor by seeing the editor code. So I use the editor to create the structure there, but it's not very good because it is not the same thing. Because I didn't change the values of the variables, and it's not going to be the same thing on the other one anyway. So I'm gonna, the whole point is to like break the stuff on purpose to see how it works. So yeah, if I can't set some values, then I'm gonna know that those values are specific to the editor classes that they have. But I assume that in the beginning there, I'm probably gonna be able to set all the values, and then just gonna replace the classes. So instead of using classes from the editor, I'm going to use the ones that the classes from the editor inherit from. So this is the project that I created. So I guess I'm just gonna, I don't think I can. The first thing to think about is whether or not to change the name of the file. I think I'm gonna put project main because it's better. I'm gonna see if I can save this without having any nodes. So if I can't do that, it seems like I can't. I'm just gonna put one normal node there, because the editor node inherits from node. Oh, I forgot to see the name of the project. I'm gonna open this again. I also got the name here from ChatGPT, and I don't think I printed this to see if it is correct, because I didn't test or anything, obviously, so it might be wrong. But I think what ChatGPT recommended is just that it's gonna, whenever you use the project settings is the class that they have on Godot to manage the settings of the project, obviously, like the name says. And when you use the get here and you pass the string, it's gonna look for the value on a cached file that they have, that I forgot the path. But I think that it's probably on the root of the project, and it's project.godot project.godot file in the root of the project. So I'm gonna, oh, I shouldn't have let me open again because it's easier to open the project from the project manager, the folder. I'm gonna open the project.godot file in the editor there to see. But I'm pretty sure it is the project.godot file that they cache the configurations of the project. So that thing is gonna get from this file. Yeah, so here, let's config name. Let's open from the VS Code. application. So I think this one gets this path here. Oh no, it has application. I do remember there is something like this because I think that they save in sections. Yeah, so because I remember there are some functions along the way, I think when it's setting up everything and when it's loading the configurations before it sets up before it initializes the editor node and does other stuff. It's going to use the project settings to get the configuration. I think, yeah, I was setting this on the exports pipeline. And I think that the name is globals setup, the name of the function. I think it's on the main. Globals, because globals is the way that they initialize the project settings. Yeah, it's a global variable because of project settings. And all these classes here are going to be singletons. So it means that there's only one instance of the class through the entire thing, which makes a lot of sense, I think. And then they call the setup function on this, yeah. And then pass the project path. And this is the one that is going to check to see if the project is valid. So like, I don't remember if it is on this one where it decides whether or not it's going to run a project or the editor, depending on the command line arguments you pass. But I do think that it is on this one that is going to basically parse the project.godot file or some of the sketch files, and then it's going to update the state of the project settings based on whatever you have on project.godot. And some of these functions, it shows there the pattern that they have there. This pattern here, so they do stuff based on sections. So if there was more stuff on the scene, I think, or on the project, there could be situations where you have more sections like this, where they put another stuff here. So this is why you have to access from that. You have to put application and then config/name. Set up just config name, just specify which section is coming from. Yeah, so this is the function that loads the resources. And the game executable that you get after you export is just basically the engine with the additional information. So you have two different options. One is they have if you export the executable and the .package file in the same file, they're just gonna put the information, the bits, the binary information, they're going to manually write to the file, to the executable, the extra information that is related to the resources of the thing. And that's why you only get one file. And the other option is you're going to export the two different files, in which case the executable is just going to be the engine executable. And then Godot is always going to do this, where it's going to look for whether or not the directory that the game is inserted at has the .package file. So I think, yeah, pretty sure that this is the function that is going to load the settings on the project settings based on whether you have two of these files here. So you can save either in binary or the text file. And then this one is going to parse the information. So this is the function, I think, because the variant is the thing that is used to transfer the different types, convert the types. Yeah, so here you can see that it's parsing the breakpoints there. It's interesting that it doesn't have the closing brackets. Or maybe it gets here. Or it doesn't matter. Oh, it has here. Yeah, obviously I'm not going to look into this. But I do think it's correct there, the ChatGPT recommendation. So this is just going to get the string from the settings and it's going to convert based on this. So this returns a variant probably. Yeah, the variant. And then the operator on probably a member variable on inside of the variant is going to be Hmm. So some of this has to convert to string there. Not really sure how. It's obviously using this stuff here. I think this one is the ones that overload the operators. So overload constructors or something like this. Also, it's just getting the constructor that is the string. So when it does dot operator and then calls the string, it's gonna call the function that initializes the variant as a string, I think. So it's converting the type basically. So it gets the settings from project managers, converts to the string using the dot operator. And then I set on the HTTP manager. The other thing that I decided to do is to change so that the function accepts a string instead of calling HTTP manager instead of it, because I think it makes more sense to have them separated. Because if I want to access the HTTP manager, I can on each project, but because there's only one file and one function, doesn't make sense to include the HTTP manager here just for getting the name. It makes more sense to accept as an argument, I think. Yeah, so now I have the now the thing is, I think it's just gonna make it easier and compile everything on the same stuff. I'm just gonna import in the way that I was doing here, so that I don't have to spend time thinking about this. It's not the best, but doesn't matter that much because I don't wanna. It's not that important, I think. But the better approach probably would be to make this as a library and then add the source files as part of the library and then connect a link as a library. Maybe it is worth it to do this, but I'm not really sure. Because this way is obviously a lot easier. I just add as part of the editor sources. I think I'm gonna leave it like this for now, and then I'll think about it after, if I'm able to, because it's more important to me to understand now, like to create the first project and to see if it works. But it is kind of annoying because like, depending on the way that this scales, there might be like a bunch of code for each project, and then it might be kind of bad because then you have to compile everything every time you wanna run the editor. So it might make more sense to... Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna leave it like this for now. And then here, this part probably I have to change, but I'm not really sure. So the way that I did here, because I was having a problem with the path, is to just ask for GPT. And I think, yeah, what this does is probably, because it considers that the root is the current folder that this is running, is gonna get the absolute path for the folder, the projects folder, and then I'm iterating over getting the directories, the subdirectories of the projects folder based on the absolute path. So this one is gonna be the name of the folder. So I should probably change this so that it comes from the projects, because I think that's, and what this is gonna do is just gonna run the sysub file for that folder as if it is a Python file, which means that here I'm gonna add all the C++ files to the build, and when you add the C++ files, it's gonna automatically add the header file there. because I'm gonna include here. So let me copy from the other files. Then you have to the question is whether or not to return. I think, yeah, based on the way that it is here. So putting in files, I'm just calling the function. It might be worth it to change this code here so that I put error equals and then the function call, so that I can return if it fails. I think I'm gonna do that. This makes more sense. Because basically, I think if something goes wrong, then it's probably better to put on the function. So I'm gonna do that. So this error here is the error that is declared here, and this function returns the error. So then I'm just return the error. So it means that every time that I have a function here, it's gonna be like this, the pattern. So also I have to see this, how I'm gonna do this. So it's probably gonna be lower. So the name is always gonna be lowercase, I think. Oh, the project over. I think it's dot lower, but I don't remember if it's a function. But I think it is dot lower. Yeah. Transfer attributes. So the name of the function is always going to be the lowercase version of the folder. Pretty sure that's how they do it on the modules. Yeah, so let me see if this works. There's something going on here. It's probably this. This is so obviously the problem is the check there. So I think I should just put this from. Yeah. It's weird that on the absolute it didn't work as well. No, but it's considering from the root probably. I should probably print the whole expression of the path. Just see what it looks like. Weird that it's not showing on both of them now. So makes me think that there's probably an issue here, so it's sitting here. Yeah, it already has changed projects. The other thing I'm gonna do here is put a message. Hmm. I forgot how it was here before. Oh, here. So, and the problem must be that it is not from, but I don't understand why when I put the other path it doesn't, maybe it's because it doesn't have the dots thing there. Like this dots slash in the beginning. It doesn't have that. Yeah. Hmm. I might, yeah. I was gonna say that it might be because of the slasher, but I don't think it is. Oh, it might be because of this, not the other thing. Yeah, so it was probably because of this check here, I think. Because the path is not the same. So maybe I don't think it matters if I put here because I'm already checking there. But I'm gonna see if this works first. Yeah, nice, worked. So I think I'm gonna remove this check here because I think on the other one they did it like this, just to check to see if the file exists. So it forces to open the file. So the problem is on the code there because it's not adding the path correctly, I think. It's on the include here. Yeah. That should be a string. I should probably do the lowercase name as well. There's probably a function on the string class to do lowercase. It's just easier. But I think on the modules, they don't use lowercase, they just use the name, whatever the name of the folder is. Or here it might be different, but I think it doesn't matter that much. So I'm just gonna leave it like this. So here is the problem. So how do I make this a string? I think the easiest way is to use this stuff. I'm gonna be right back. I wonder if I can put, I think it's like true. I don't know. I think this is probably adding a tab to the thing. Also here. So here I should include the manager.age. I think that what I'm gonna do, what I was gonna do is just pass the stuff that I have here to test in the beginning to the other thing. I think I can save the stuff outside and just do this here. Just start with this one. The other folder I'm gonna have here is gonna be layouts. think I don't need to check if it's empty because this is gonna be... Yeah, but now I'm not checking there, so maybe I should check if it's empty. I was gonna say that like if it was empty then it wouldn't... This would return false, but I think since I changed now, I have to check there again. Maybe the first thing that I should do is probably to just add one. Like this, just see if it's working. And I'm probably gonna, after, if this works, then I'm gonna remove, because I only had, the only reason for having this function here is just to test in the beginning. So if it works there, I'm gonna remove from the function from there, because the main entry point is gonna be the add node, add child node. I'm gonna create another function as well that is gonna add the layouts. So probably after I'm gonna test this first, then if it works, I'm gonna create another function here that adds, it's gonna be basically the same thing. Maybe I think I'm just gonna change the function that I have there so that it doesn't get confusing. So I'm just gonna put a Boolean variable, because I think that is not gonna be very complicated. If it is complicated, then I can change to an enum later, I think. Maybe I'll probably change to an enum later, because the only distinction I can think is just the layouts and normal nodes. Because if I create too much, but maybe there is gonna be some variance, I think. I think I'm gonna start with enum, because then there might be situations where you want another thing. So what I'm gonna do is just this is a problem. So on this function here, I'm gonna change so that, and the only way that I think it makes sense to do this is by doing like this, because you need to, like the function needs to be decoupled from the project, so it has to receive both the parent and the child. Because if I want to, unless I want to change the node class, I guess I can do that as well. So I could add the function inside of the node class and then just add from the node. Maybe that's worth doing, actually. But I think it doesn't make a lot of sense. It has to be like this because of the way that I'm checking here. So I'm checking based on the global hash stats that is gonna store the names. So I think it makes more sense to just leave it, because if you want to compile without having the editor, then it doesn't make sense to have as part of the node class. So I think that's probably fine. So the way that it works is that you receive the parent and the child, and then I check to see if the child has the name already on the hash set, because this is updated based on the extraction of the scene. So I'm saving based on this pattern. And I think the only difference is going to be, so I'm going to have to change this function and the other one, because I'm going to put an enum probably. So based on the enum, it's going to check what kind of pattern it's going to be. I think it's fine, should be an enum. It's basically going to be just, in the beginning, just the distinction between layout names and the other nodes added from code. Because I'm thinking about the layout's going to be the initial setup of everything. So which is probably what I'm going to spend most time now. Because I want to figure out, like, inside of the layouts function. So I'm going to do this from the project first because it's easier. But then if I see, like, once I understand well how the layout from the editor works, what I can do is just put the function inside of these layouts here, and then I just put a collection of different functions. Each one's going to be a starting layout point, and then on each project I can just use that function to initialize everything, and then build the rest of the project either from code or from the editor with the initial layouts. But I want to have the distinction between the names in case I want to delete a layout, for example. Like, let's say I got the wrong one and then I started building for some reason on the wrong one without realizing. Then later I can just switch layouts and see if it works. Because if you think about it, the main difference is just going to be the structure of the sync tree in the end. So and having the hash set prevents from adding the node multiple times every time you run the code. The node already exists because it's caching each node based on another static variable, because the order of them doesn't matter. So, but this is another thing that is kind of complicated that I'm not really sure what to do. Because like there's the main difference between implementing custom functionality by creating new classes, and implementing with GDScript, I think. So, like, this is something I'm debating as well now, which I'm not really sure. Because if with GD extension, or I think it's GD extension, the name. Basically using the extension, it allows you to change the functionality of the node without having to change its type. And I think I'm gonna have to do that. So, because there's probably, it probably comes down to, but maybe not actually. This is kind of, no, I think I don't have to, because now that I realize is that on the graph class that I have there on the module, I'm putting the function inside of the notification process. So if I want to have a differentiation between classes, let's say I want to have a button that does something, but another button that does something else, I can do it based on the signals or based on the notification function. But the question is, how does it work when you're caching the states of the node? That's kind of the problem that I'm not really sure. Yeah, I think this is the issue, because like the scene is not aware of the behavior of the thing. It's just it's going to capture the type of the node and it's going to put there, and you can change the state the member variables, because that's also going to be saved as a sub resource. But the problem is, what if you want the class to have a different function implementation? Then I can't really add from the code, I think, from C++ code. I would have to create an extension and then add the extension to the node so that it is a sub resource, I think. Because that's the main difference between GDScript and using modules. When GDScript, you're creating another file that serves as a resource. And when you're doing the modules, you're inheriting from a base file, let's say, changing the behavior of the class hierarchy. So, and the reason why it's not easy to put to make a GDScript that works based on C++ is that is because of the compilation process. So that's why they did the extensions, because the extensions work as a static library, I think, or a dynamic linked library. I think it can work both ways, probably. But basically, the issue is going to be on the compile time, and it's more annoying to make it work, I think. And I don't understand very well how it works. I do remember, like, there is a member variable inside of the object class, I think, that is the one that is going to manage the extension, which is the same pattern for the script. So that you have the script instance member variable on the object class that handles the GDScript. And then the behavior that is changed from GDScript is viewed as a resource because you add the file. So it's possible it's easier to cache. That's the thing. Because obviously it's not scale. The problem is that it's not scalable to do. Like if I just want to change some slight thing about the button, it doesn't make sense to create a new class every time you want the button to do something else. So this is the main question that I have now. So I should probably test this here, and then on this function I should think about the different ways. I think that's probably the first thing that I should do here. So first I'm gonna test like this. Subproperty is already tested, which is basically this sphere mesh here. So what is happening here, which I did on the other project, is that I create two different mesh instances 3D, and then I add to the root node of the scene. And the way that you get the scene is just by using the classes that they created, which is package scene, which is basically a system that they created to read and write from the scene files. And that allows you to have the state of the game. So it's all based on the resources and the patterns that they have there for the scene file. So once you have the package scene, you can get the node from the package scene by calling a function. That node is going to be the root node of the function, of the scene, because all the scenes are going to be just a scene tree, and the whole game is going to be the... it's kind of different than the way that I was thinking about way before, because it works based on the server. So the main scene is the one that is the entry point. So it's like a connection of trees. So you can think about it as a graph where, like, the main graph has the nodes that are the roots of the scene. And that's basically going to be a state machine, which is going to be based on the behavior of each scene tree. Because somewhere along the scene tree, you're going to have a node that's going to have the functionality to change scenes if your project has more than one scenes, because otherwise there wouldn't be a point of connection. So all that the scenes are just a tree, and they are separated because the behavior to change the scenes are in some of the nodes. So what I was doing is just getting the root of the scene, and then I add to the root the nodes. And then here I tested to see, so I did one without changing its state, and I did the other one by initializing the sphere mesh, and then instantiating, and then setting the mesh as the on the child instance. And the weird thing that I realized as well, that I tried, that I'm not really sure, maybe I should try that now, is that if I when I was setting before adding as a child, it wasn't working, but when I was setting after, it was working. And I think it has to do based on the way that they decided to implement the system, because if you want the nodes to be cached, you have to set the owner of the nodes. So the owner has to be the somewhere along the scene hierarchy. I think this is gonna work. So I'm not really sure if I tested by adding true. So I think because the node has to be an owner, if you change its member variables, its state before setting the owner as a parent, then when you're gonna cache for whatever reason, it caches based on whatever state it had. Oh, but that wouldn't make sense. It starts recording basically the state after you set the owner, I think. And before that point, it's kind of like it doesn't. But I'm not really sure if that's the reason why it wasn't working. This is the issue though. Yes. Like the notification only makes sense. It has to be through the signals, because the notification only makes sense to change if you declare the class again, because you have to change on the inheritance. So this is kind of the problem. And the problem with the signals is that it's gonna trap me into the sing tree, because it then defeats the point of having global signals, because then, or unless I can call, yeah, but then I would have to change the function. I would have to change the class itself, which would change everything else. But what I can do, if the normal signals work, then obviously what I can do is just always create this relationship where the parent is gonna send the global signal, and then that allows me to always have only one level of connection between nodes if I need. So I think that probably the signal is the most important, and the notification doesn't make sense. So the main question is whether or not, like, if we instantiate the class and then you add the signal to the node, if it is gonna cache the signal or not. That's the main thing, sure. So if it does, then I can do whatever I want. So yeah, but I should obviously create another function here and then add the signal and put that function as the thing. And this is kind of the problem though, because this is the thing that I don't understand very well. Because if that works, like in my mind, it shouldn't work, because there is no way for the sync file to cache the code that exists here. That's the problem. Unless it's part of the class. So maybe each project has to have its own class if I want to do this. Yeah, but then the class would have to be registered on the class DB, which would be kind of bad, because then like each project that you do, you'd have to incorporate the project as part of the nodes on the thing, which doesn't make sense. But I guess the editor works, so it should work. Yeah, but the problem is that the difference between the editor is that what they're doing on the editor is not really creating a project. They're just changing the main behavior of the engine based on the flag variables that you pass when you build and when you run the project, the engine. And the editor nodes, they run with the engine. They are not cached. So that's the difference, I think. And this is the reason why it allows them to set up the signals. So I think for that reason, I'm probably going to be forced to try to implement extensions in order to allow me to do scripting with C++. So like I need both the modules and the extension so I can change the behavior. I'm thinking whether or not there is an easier way to do this. Because I assume that the way that the extensions work is that because like whenever you want to use extensions, but I guess this is the same thing for modules. Like if you do the extension, you have to, and you want to rebuild, let's say, for example, you can't obviously get the source code because it has to be the modified version of the source code to work. So I think it doesn't matter that much. I think what it happens is that when you use the extension, it's viewed like as a dynamic linking library or a static library that is linked, and then the engine is going to be aware. Because when you export, I think that but I think it doesn't matter that much because on the export, it should already have the binary that's going to make the engine run. So it just changes the way that you just do a custom export instead of the normal one, probably. Because then you're not using the normal engine. It's going to be all the codes that contains the extra code for the functions. Because that way the engine is going to be aware of whatever extra functionality you put there. And I think it makes sense to leave it like this and then put, so like the steps that I was thinking about, like to get this state. The other one that I'm going to do later is to export the project as well. After saving all the scenes, I can have a, which I'm probably going to put, I might put on the, I'm not really sure if it's worth putting on the command line arguments. I can have an option that allows me to export every time that I compile. It doesn't matter that much, I think. But I think it makes sense to leave like this. So get the states, then you change the project based on whatever function entry points you have here. Then it saves the scene through the save scene there, which is just gonna save all the scenes from the HT manager. So guess the roots from the, and then it saves the scene for each one, which is just calling the Godot functions to with the root, which is on here, which is going to be the one that I pass here. So let me test this. So that should be projects, routes. Oh, actually, I should go one level up, I think. This is kind of tricky, I think. If it doesn't work, it's going to be annoying. I should be 2 levels up. I think the path is working based on the... Oh, that doesn't make sense. I was going to say that it is working based on the root of the headless because of the SC sub. But I think I'm not doing anything there. I'm just going to... I'm just using the editor sources. So, yeah, it's not what I was thinking. I still don't understand very well how Scones is gonna build the paths they use on include statements. Because I know for sure, obviously based on the stuff here, that depending on which way you add the C++ files, it allows you to put different relative paths. So I think if it was based on the SC sub, then it should work if I put the relative path. But maybe it is based on the SC sub. But then it would work if I put it just manager.h, because then that's the path from the the headless. Here, oh no, here I'm doing from the editor. Also, I think I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna try the same off here. I guess putting from the root is probably better if it works, because then it's the same on all of them, and I don't have to remember. Because probably each project that I do, I'm just gonna copy from the previous one, the normal includes. First is not a member. I don't know if I should do it like this. Not sure if that makes sense. Because of this thing here. Because it's not gonna return a pointer, it returns the value. As far as I understand there. Just returning like the iterator. I don't know. Here. I'm trying to figure out how to get the data. I'm not really sure how this works. It should be a key there as well. That's okay. It's probably easier to just loop again because I already have the. I think I'm gonna do that, so I don't spend time on this. Just gonna loop and then I put the condition in the beginning, in the middle of the loop. I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT first and then it's probably is empty. Oh, this is probably like you. I don't know, but yeah. So it access the thing from the key. I was confused about what to put on the right. This is overloading. I guess it makes sense there. So I wasn't sure. I think what is happening is just overloading the way that you access the element here, and because the element is this type, the way that you access the key and the value is just by specifying there the key value. Let's see if this works. And even if it works, I'm probably gonna change the loop because I think it's probably better. That's probably the pattern that I'm always gonna use, because probably on a lot of projects there's gonna be more than one thing, and usually the way that you're gonna do it is by putting, like, creating an entry point function for each thing. So I'm probably just gonna do a sequence of if statements inside of the for loop. So this set should be. I need to get the instance first, or maybe. No. I don't remember if I should put this thing here as well. I'll try without first. I should probably do. But I think it's gonna work because the string overloads some stuff that makes it work. And if it doesn't, I'm just gonna initialize this as a string as well. It's weird that it's not selecting the thing. Another thing that I tested by accident is that it doesn't matter if you have the project open with the editor and you run from here. It just asks to refresh, but I'm not really sure if it's the best because I don't know how it works there very well. When you refresh, I remember that in the very beginning when I was studying this, I did something that changed the scene while the editor was on. I think I did that on purpose to see what would happen because they have some functions. I think that they have some functions on the file system that check to see if anything changed, and it's inside of the loop on the notification. So the editor is gonna call those functions every frame. So whenever you change something on the folder of the project, it is gonna call a signal, a function from a signal, and then that function is gonna update it's gonna ask you to refresh the scenes to update the state. But I think it's probably not ideal because I remember if you break the scene or something like that, it can sometimes break the project or so. It's probably just easier to just close the editor every time. Oh, I'm doing for the wrong project, so I have to run again. But it's still interesting to see if anything is gonna happen. So anything weird is gonna happen. Oh, that's. But I think that's fine. But I forgot about this as well. I should check to see. Yeah, because here I'm calling the thing, so I should check to see. Oh no, but I think that's fine because it checks on this function, so it doesn't matter that they are. It's just trying to find, so on the function there that is created by this file, it checks to see here if the projects exists there. Yes, I think this is fine. That's nice, yeah. I put this somewhere else. Oh, so it's going, huh? But it's kind of weird. Oh, because it's not an empty name, yeah, so it's just going over this one. And the other one is from the main thing. Yeah. It seems that it worked. Hmm. I didn't add anything. It's probably because of the condition here. There's something going on with this. I think it's just easier to copy than the stuff that I had before. Because the other one, I know that it works. I think I delete it. Copy from here. For some reason, it's not working. I'm gonna open from here anyway. So I'm gonna print there to see if it's calling here. No, it didn't work. Main, yes. I should probably print here as well. I'll try to print roots key. Print line. And so it's a variance. And so just accepts a variant, converts to a string based on the same pattern there from the project settings. And it calls this with the string. So it's getting the print from the operational system and converting to a C string probably from the string here. I call this UTF-8 and get data. So it's not calling the function. It's not printing this either. So it might be something with this here. I should probably implement functions as well to like getters and setters instead of accessing like this. Oh, it's because the key is gonna be different. That's the problem. So I have to see. But the weird thing is that it's not printing the key either. So it should have something because I'm pretty sure like this is working for sure because it's caching the thing. But the thing that I had different than before, and I don't think I tested to change this thing. Maybe I did actually. It might be like because it's saving the scene now. But I don't think that would make sense. Because it should be caching here anyway, so. Let me just put inside of the loop there. Because it should be printing this as well. I'm gonna implement the getter and setter as well. I think only getter actually. This doesn't make sense to set this thing. The problem with this, no, I do think that's not gonna matter. Like the problem I was gonna say is the pointer, because it has to be the same node that the thing has, because that's the one that is gonna be saved there. No, maybe I should do the saving because of that on each project separately. It's just like more reliable, I think. Because then I make sure that the node that I'm saving is the one that was changed, just so I don't have decreases the chances of this confusion between pointers. But I think like it shouldn't matter, I think, because if this one works, then I think it doesn't matter. Because then for all of them, I'm probably gonna do the same thing. Just gonna get the node here. I think that's what I could do is just make like force the entry point function for each project to receive the root as a argument, and then I would have to change the other one as well. I think should pass from the main one. That could be another way, I think. So I'm not really sure if that way is better. So that way I would get the... It's probably better actually, because then I don't have to rewrite on each project. So I'm probably going to change this. I'm going to check to see if this works, but I'm probably going to change this. So I'm going to do the same thing. Project manager with the project name here. I'm just going to get the roots. The sing roots, and I'm going to pass to this function here. And then on each project is going to have to receive the sing roots as well. I think that makes more sense. Because, and also to leave the save here, because like all the projects are going to be the same when it comes to getting the state and saving, so it doesn't make sense to rewrite for each project. The functions that are going to change for each project is just the change project, what you do with the sing roots. And actually maybe the save should, yeah. If I receive as an argument and then it works, then it probably does. I can save from here, because then it means that the pointer is the same. So like you're always going to change the roots based on the one that is like this is the same object, it's just passing the pointer around, I think. And so now it printed more stuff. So I think that this value is the one that's here. So I'm saving the full path to the sing from the root of the project. So I should always... but this... No, maybe it's... It's calling the function twice as well, which is kind of weird. Oh no, it isn't weird because... No, but it is kind of weird because it only has one sing. It should have only one sing. Change layouts, projects. So it's saving the same scene with different names. That's the thing. So I'm saving two scenes. So the problem is on the extract. Oh yeah, it's because now I'm caching, so I have the two different paths. So like the first time I cache, then the project only has one scene, but the next time, because this function is recursive, it's gonna traverse the whole project. I think I thought about this as well, but I didn't realize that it's gonna change the state of the scene, because now I'm adding to the main project is gonna have more routes if I do it like this. So what I have, no, let me think about this. I have to figure out a way to skip the. It's kind of annoying because this function is recursive, and I'm not very familiar with the methods from the dir access. So it's kind of annoying to think about. Yeah, I can put inside of this loop here a function that checks, like a condition that checks to see if the. I could check here and then return maybe. But that's kind of confusing. I'm thinking about a way to put a condition that skips the cached folder, which is the .headless inside of the root of the project. So that should be here. So maybe like I can just do ends and then check to see the name. So the question is how to get the should be the path probably. I think it's probably so. I'm thinking that like this checks to see if the current directory is if the dir access is a directory on this iteration, because if it is, it's just gonna keep recursing. So all I have to do is just check whether or not it's different than this, so that it doesn't recurse inside of the .headless. I'm not really sure if the path is gonna be like this or not, or if this is very good. So I'm thinking about whether or not there's an easier way to do this. So I'm gonna leave the condition like this for now, and I'm gonna compile. So. Because I don't want to change the scene, I just want to see if it's going to show 2 different times here. It should only loop once, obviously, because it only has one. And if that works, then I change the name here, check from the root of the... Because the key is going to be from the root of the projects. So I was going to have the... I'm saving the whole path to the scene as the key here, instead of the name of the scene. And I don't want to think about how to split the path. I could, there is a function in the string to split a string. So I could split the string based on the slash or something like that, and then get the last value to get only the name of the scene, but I think it's not worth it probably. It might be though. Microphone is probably fucking up. It might be worth it though, because I'm gonna do this each project, so like I'm always gonna do this pattern, I think, on all of them. So like I'm always gonna have to put this condition here, so it's kind of annoying if I have to put the path, I think. So now there's only one. Nice. I'm just gonna change, so it's like this. I think I'm gonna leave it like this, because it's one of those things that's not worth the effort, I think. Unless it's very easy to do there. Because like on each project, I'm gonna have to think about this anyway, because every time that I want to change the scene, I'm gonna have to think about which scene I want to change. And then because I have to think about the scene, I'm gonna think about the path, and so it doesn't matter that much if I just put it's probably better actually to have the full path, because there might I think it's just better to have the full path anyway, because maybe you wanna have two scenes that have the same name in different paths. I think that then like visually it also is a lot easier, but the problem is that every time that you change the scene on the project and you forgot to change the code, you're gonna get errors. That's the issue. So if I do it, if I save the names based on, maybe I save the full path and then on each project I just split. Yeah, but then that's kind of. So I can split the string there, and then I can get the last value, and that would give the name of the string. Actually, maybe it's very easy to change this, because I just remember that the way that I'm saving is by doing this. So yeah, obviously I can just put next here. I think I'm gonna do that. It doesn't make sense to put. So if I save as next, it's probably only gonna save the scene name. So I think this way is probably better, since it's easy to change, because then I make sure that the only thing I have to make sure is that all the scenes have unique names, but it's gonna be easier there on the condition to check, because then I can just put the name of the scene file to determine which one I'm gonna change. So I'm gonna test, I'm gonna compile again, and then, oh, actually, forgot that I have changed here. So it's probably gonna be just the name of the scene. If I put next there. I'm thinking whether or not, like, there are situations where it's worth it to have the full path, because I was thinking that it might be better to have both options, like have the full path and have only the file names. But I think that only the scene name is probably the one that in more situations is going to be used often. But obviously what I can do is just create another struct inside of this, and then just save both the full path and the relative path if I want to. And I'm thinking about this stuff now because it becomes a lot harder to change things once it grows. There's more stuff built on top of it, obviously. So I think later it's going to be harder to change if I don't. But I don't think there's any situation where you would be very beneficial to have the whole path of this thing. And the problem is that, and I never did anything changing this scene yet. Maybe when you change the scene, you need the full path. So I think I'm probably gonna do that. I'm going to save both. That's probably better. Because it doesn't, like, it's not that difficult to change now. And I might need, for changing the scene for or whatever reason, to have the full path. So I create another struct there, and then I just put relative or full path and scene name. And this one I'm not using anymore. I was gonna use this one because I thought I had to save the scene here, but I only need the root nodes. So I'm probably gonna change this one or use this one again. Another one like this first. I think the only places that I'm using this is to cache here and to change here now, I think. And on the change thing probably. So those are the only places that I would have to change, I think. Oh no, it was on the loop that I was using. I'm gonna try to change there, so I think it's worth it. Not save file main TC. Oh, this is the problem. So to save, you need the full path. So yeah, I have to change. So I'll do this here. Well, this is another thing that I just realized is that I don't know, but it makes sense. Like, I was gonna say that when I save, I should change the cache, but it doesn't make any sense. So I have to change on the save all scenes as well, I think. I think, yeah, I do remember like getting something like this. And that's the reason why I stopped using scene info. So I think that this has to do with the variant class, because the hash map probably uses variant at some point. That's the problem. But maybe not. Oh no, maybe not. So I was thinking that it might be because hash map uses variant. And I do remember getting into a problem with this before when I was trying to make it work with this other struct. Because I didn't spend too much time studying the hash map functionality and the other classes functionality yet. So, but it might be just because I forgot here and because I'm not using the HD manager to access. But usually the problem that I get is because whenever you want to use a type on one of the classes from Godot that is going to use variant at some point, the class should be registered on the variant class. So either you use one of the standard classes that they have, which are already registered, like they already have the functionality inside of the variant to do the conversion of types, or you create a struct or a class that inherits from an object, and then you make it as a pointer. But I think it might be because I forgot to do like this here. Oh, and here as well. Hopefully it works. So if it doesn't work, then I have the option of either making scene info inherit from object, but then I think it's very bad because you're gonna have to allocate memory using memnew if you inherit from object, which is not very good. Or I have to think about something else. So, like the obvious solution would be to create another hash map, but I'm not really sure if that's very good as well. I think it should be only here because here is outside of the class. On scene info, I can put on save all scenes. I can put scene info because it's inside of the class. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have time to do the editor layout. This has been a long time. So I was gonna be able to do this faster. So whatever. Because it's more, I think before I start building with the, I wanted to do this setup first because I know it's gonna be annoying in the beginning to, because of the file generation and stuff like that. Have to generate the function on the build system. So I knew it's gonna be kind of annoying, but I think after I'm able to do this in the beginning, it's probably better to spend time studying the extension. Because before I start building stuff, I need to make sure that I'm gonna be able to incorporate functionality on the nodes without having to create new nodes each time. So, because it's probably gonna be something that it happens very often, where like you have a class that you already have, it already has everything you want, but you just want to change its behavior on some points, like the button and stuff like that. I think it's like the simplest example where there's a lot of situations where it makes sense to change the behavior of the class, and it doesn't make sense to create a whole new class just to change one function. So it's gonna be it's gonna be on the gradient of how often you use that type on the scene. Like the more often you use, the more incentivized you are to go with the composition approach, which is to use the either GD script or the extension. And then the more unique the thing is, then the more incentivized you are to create a new class. So I'm gonna have to overload functions, I think. There's some stuff with the hash map that is a problem here, I think. So I think probably like one of the easiest approaches would be to just save the full path like I was doing. And then for each project I split, and then I check, or I just check based on the full path and whatever. I think this is probably easier. So I think what's happening here is that some functionality on the hash map is gonna require for me to overload the double equal operator, because the hash map is a templated class, I think. Yeah, it is a templated class, and then the functionality inside is going to depend on the templates you have here. And it's probably complaining about one of these. So if I want to make work with the struct that I have there, I would have to probably implement overload operators on inside of the scene info here. But I think that doesn't make a lot of sense. I think I'm just gonna go back to the way I was doing before, because it's a lot easier, and then I just compare inside of the function with the full path each time. Yeah, that makes more sense. So I'm just gonna delete this, because otherwise it's just gonna be like too much work to overload there. It's gonna spend much time. Then I save the full path. I compare based on the full path. I have to change the getter and center. No, the getter. I think it's gonna be like this. So I think it's not worth the work there to overload inside of the manager. It's a lot simpler just to, on each project, I just either check the full path or I split inside of the project to get the last value of the string. So I can split based on this pattern here because the string class has a split function. So I think that they basically just loop over the pointer and then they check based on the pattern. And then it creates a vector of strings based on whatever pattern you put here. So I could put that, but then it becomes annoying because of the difference between Windows and Linux and the way that they do the paths. So I think it just should, like, it's not worth it. It's much better just do it like this, I think. I should probably print here. I should make sure that the path is this. I think before I studied the editor layouts, I am going to just put there now, I think. So I'm going to test these things here. If it works and there isn't anything else that I have to solve, I'm just going to test what happens. Like in the simple situations, then I'm going to put the beginning of the code there from the editor just to see how it looks. And the only thing you have to replace is just the function there to add the, so just use this function whenever they have add child on the editor, just to see how it looks. But before I continue to work on the layouts, I'm going to study the extension. Because I need to see if I'm going to be able to change the behavior of the nodes with a function. So I can change the way that the class works without having to create a new class. And if I can't do that, then I'm going to have to spend a bunch of time thinking on how to change the system so it works. Okay, so now it seems that is working. I think I'm not gonna do the editor on stream. I'm just gonna stop streaming and then continue to do this off stream. I'm just gonna test the simple cases here, then I'll think about the rest. So I think it's working. So let me open again. I can delete the node from the file, but just to make sure that, because deleting for the file might fuck up the thing if I don't delete the correct way. So I think it's just better to open again and then delete, because if I run again, then it's not gonna add the node because of the check there instead of the add child node function. So I'm gonna delete the node from this thing there. Then I'm going to change, to set the sphere mesh before I add the node as a child to see if it's gonna change or not. Because in the first time that I remember, when I was setting the mesh here before adding the node as a child, it wasn't saving for some reason. And I think it has to do with the thing about the owner of the node. But it's not that big of a deal, but just want to make sure. Because it might be because of something else that it wasn't working. So now I'm just gonna pass this stuff here. And these are also didn't pass. What happens when you add more than one node in the hierarchy? Because I want to see the relation. So like I think I tested, the only nodes that I tested is by making the owner the root node of the scene, but I never tested if I make the owner one node that I added from the code. So like add another node as a child of the child instance. So I'm gonna just copy the code that I have here and then add this past child instance and the other to this one, because this one receives the parent. So the thing is, I thought about this, but I think it's not very worth it as well, because it's probably better to use extensions. But like it's probably possible to, because the way that the sync file works is that it allows you to, it caches the sub resources, and the sub resources are the properties of the class. So obviously it caches that to save the state of the node if you change something on the editor. So obviously one thing that you could do potentially, I think, is to add the functionality through the member variable. I'm not really sure if that would work. So like is add a function as a reference as a member variable of a class. But that's probably what the GD extension is already. So yeah, I think it's probably not worth it to think about this. It's probably better to just study the GD extension and then try to make it work with the GD extension. Unless it could be like, unless I can think about a way to make it like a lot simpler and easier to do, because then what I would do obviously is just change the object class. So I add or each time that I want to do that, I just create another, or change the whatever class I want to change. So for example, the button, I could change the button class so it has a function or something like that. So it seems it is working, so maybe it was something else. It was probably something else that it was wrong then. So it doesn't matter when you set the values, it's still gonna work. When it saves the sub resources, the member variables of the class as a sub resource by using this stuff here. And the class that does this is the package sing. So the package sing has the patterns for reading and writing to this file here. And it does this based on the class DB. So the class DB and the object slots, I think. But I think it's just class DB because what matters is the... Yeah, but maybe it does use the object slots because it needs the reference of the object. But it's basically retrieving the values and the state of the class, the information that the class needs, from using class DB, and then it goes over a loop, and then based on whatever properties and the value of the properties, it's gonna write based on whatever pattern they have there on this file here, and then it reads based on the same logic. So obviously it was probably much harder to write the code in the beginning than to understand superficially how it works. But the problem here is that you can't really... I think the only way to cache the function is probably what they did on the GD extension, where you have to compile the other stuff that you're gonna use as part of the class, and then you probably it becomes part of the engine instead of being a resource if you do it from C++. I think that's the main difference probably from using GD extension or GD script and using GD extension. When you use GD script, you create another file, and the file is a resource. So the engine uses the file system to read the file, and then from that, it parses the code from the file using the script instance class, and it's going to use the variant class to work as a bridge between the GD script code and the C++ code. So it's like you're saving as a resource, but if you use the GD extension, then it's like you're adding extra C++ code to the engine itself. But it probably uses the similar logic because the probably is like the class that is responsible for the GD extension is going to work in a similar way that the script instance, which is the class that handles the GD script code, works, which they probably both use the variant to do the translation. Yeah, so script instance is this one, and they're both member variables of the object class. The extension is this. So it's GD extension class. Yeah, so it's this class here, this one, which I haven't studied, so I don't know very well how it works. And then the GD script one is going to be this one. So this one, I think, is an abstract class. Like the GD script class, the actual class that handles GD script is going to inherit from this, I think, but I don't remember at all. So let me test to see what happens if I set a signal there. What's gonna happen? So let me think about a situation. So I guess I can put, I think I can copy from one the class that I already have there. But let me spend some time. Look at this. So this is a struct. So that the struct ends here. And the nice thing about the extensions as well is that you can use any language you want, as far as I understand. So there, like, it opens up a lot of possibilities. So like you would allow me to not only write on C++ and just write on whatever language I want. But I think it's just more, it's more annoying to set up, I think, in the beginning. So so what I'm gonna do, let me finish this other task here. I'm still gonna add later. I'm gonna copy this. This might be a problem because it's kind of interesting to see what happens here. Because the issue with this is that, like, it's not gonna add the node to the sing, this one, because it already has the node, the name. So it might be a problem because it's gonna add this one as a child of this one, but the actual one that is part of the sing is not this one. So this is the issue. I think this is gonna be a problem. So I have to think about this as well. And I knew, obviously, from the beginning, like, this is something that I've been thinking about. But it's not very easy to think about what is the best way to do this. Because it feels not very good to do it based on the name, because it seems kind of fragile, I think, to rely on the names. But the other way, the problem is that it's too overly complicated, I think. So there has to be another way that I'm not thinking about now. But the other way I was thinking about is just like is similar to the way that they do some, I think, GDScript functionality, where they do this, like the same logic that they use to build the modules. They use something similar for the GDScript file. So they basically generate a file on build time, and the file has the functionality. But like, I think that way is too complicated. So like, I would have to keep track of two different versions, I think. So one version is the one that is built from code, and the other one is built from editor. And then you need a way to synchronize both of them. And probably the way you do that is using template metaprogramming. So whenever you have, like, because you need to synchronize to place two different places in memory. So synchronize cache, I think. So like, one version is saved on the cache of the headless, the other one would be the editor. And then every time you run the code, there would need to be some mechanism that changes the code based on the difference of versions. Like, changes the tree, but it's too complicated, I think. So I think that the best way to see it, yeah, but it doesn't work. I was gonna say, like, if I can separate the, like, I have two different trees, let's say, and then they're both connected to the roots, but then it doesn't make sense, obviously, because like, the point is to have, like, the thing has to be, I think, like, this is where the complexity comes from, because it's a range between, like is the structure of the tree. Like the line is going to be on the infinite possible connections you can have between nodes created from code and nodes created from the editor. So that's going to obviously impact the structure of the tree, and is going to go towards infinity. So the challenge is figuring out like how to create the system that allows it, regardless of which configuration of the tree you have, to make sure that whenever you run from the code, it doesn't add additional nodes unless you change the code. So it's basically, I should always have the same state from the code, independent of what you do on the editor. So I think that this is going to be a problem here if I... But I'm not really sure like how to go about doing this. I can't think about a very good solution right now. I know like there must be some simpler solution, but I can't think about it now. The only one that is the most straightforward is just this versioning system, but it seems very bad to do that. So there must be another like easier way. Obviously the easier one is the name, doing by the name, but because of this structure, I'm not really sure. So it might be something along those lines, the same lines that I'm using here, something that is probably based on nodes or some pattern like that. And I just have to think more about the structure of the function to add the node. So there's both that problem and the problem with the functionality, the GD extension problem. And the next thing would be to add the signal and see what happens, which I also think is a problem. So what I'm going to do for the signal is just get the function that I did there on the slider, the physics slider, I think. It's probably better to just copy the one from the editor already, because the physics slider might be more it doesn't have anything here. So the problem is that it's adding the child on a different node. Because this one is not added to this thing. And I already tested if I remove from here, like if I remove the check, every time you run the code, it's gonna add an additional node there. Let's say we add one node on the code here. Each time you run the code, it would add another node, even though like, that's not what you want. So also, one thing that I can do is, instead of returning void, I just return the node if it exists. But then how would I do that? This is what I'm saying, like, it's gonna get very complicated, I think. So like, obviously, I can get from the root, I can get the root of the scene, but then like I would have to like change this function to accept the root of the scene. Then I try to get a node, because like it's not caching on the same place that the node exists. So like, I would need to get based on the name. I get the node. I call a function from the scene root to get that node with that name, and then I return that node. And then every time that I call the add child node function, I would make it equal to another node, and then I would add that one to the. And then in case the node doesn't exist, I would just return the. I would return the child instance, which would be the same basically. So I think that would work, but I'm not really sure, like if there's a better way than to do it by the name. Like the key is that the stuff I was saying is, so there's two main things here. One is figuring out this stuff with the GD extension, like how to change the behavior of nodes without having to create another classes, so that I can cache them on the scene, like. And the other one is this stuff about the, like how do you create a system that is gonna shape the, regardless of the evolution of the structure of the tree, it allows me to run the code as if I'm running from the beginning each time. So that the history of the code is directly reflects the state of the cached scene. I think probably the name is probably the easiest solution. Should do it based on the name. But I just have to spend more time thinking about how to structure the functions in the class so that based on the name I can break down in the simplest way possible to handle all the cases where I'm gonna have the different relationships between nodes added from the code and nodes added from the editor. I'm gonna test this other case here, and then I'm gonna think about this offstream more. And then you just spend a lot of time thinking about this to clarify like what are the possible ways. So either I use the class that I created there, or I use something else. I'm gonna use the one that I have there, because I need to check to see if it works anyway. If it's gonna work. If I have one of these classes. I need to see on the physics slider, actually. So this is basically the editor slider, just changed the class, so I register on class B so I can use the node. And then here, create another function. Pretty sure it's gonna... I guess I can test... I'm probably gonna test the two different ways, but I'm gonna... actually, I need to pass as a class, probably because of the way the callable MP works. So what is the easiest way to do this now? There's obviously one thing that yeah, but then it wouldn't be good. Hmm. So like, I'm thinking I can get this one and then it's not very good. I think. I guess one thing that I can do is just either I can use global signals to create another function on global signals, yeah, but that wouldn't be very good. And it's also a big problem, I think, if I do it like this. Because then it falls into the same problem that the extending functionality through the modules has, which is that like every time that you want to add a different function here to connect the signal with the context of the project, I would have to create another class to sign up the function here. I think the problem is that I can't, because of the way that the macro works, I need to pass an instance of a class. And then obviously the instance of the class has to be part of the class DB. But then the issue is, like if I create another class here on the project, then I have to subscribe the class on the class DB. And then it defeats the point because then each project that I do, I'm adding a new class to the engine, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And the project has to be separated. So obviously it can work for a situation where I just want to call some random function from a class that is already part of the engine, but obviously that's not what I want to do. What I would want to do is just change the behavior. I guess I can use global signals instead of using normal signals. But that doesn't make sense because the point is to change the behavior of a specific instance of the class. Yeah, so I think it's basically the same issue, the two things. I can't even connect the signal the way that I'm thinking. But just for curiosity, I'm just gonna try to see. We're gonna get one function here. Maybe we should do one of the classes that I have there. I'm gonna do one of the classes that I have, because then I can add a function to that class. I'm gonna do physics slider value changed. And then I just include here. So I'm just curious to see what's gonna happen. If it is gonna, yeah, but then I guess I can add the physics slider to the thing. Yeah, I can add, and then I can change the value of this. Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna add a physics slider from the editor. So this one is gonna be added through here, and I'm gonna check to see when I change the value of this, what happens with the physics slider, if it changes the value or not. Because I want to know if it's gonna, based on the caching system, if it is gonna record the states of this on the cache. But I think either way, I'm gonna have to implement as a GD extension instead of using signals. Because this way, There's both that it doesn't work because of the reason that I said, that every time you want to add extra functionality, you need to create a new class, which runs into the same problem. And also that is more annoying because you have to connect to a normal signal, which is not very good. So I think that the only way that makes sense is just by studying the GD extensions and then incorporating functionality with the GD extension if I want to. And this is interesting because I don't remember now. This one I just changed based on the way that they do the editor classes. So this BM slider is the slider they have on the editor. Guys, we're just gonna do it like this. You might fuck up because of this. Yeah. So like I would have to have the like this would have to be inside of the context of the class there. No, it's because I'm using this here. Maybe if I don't remember how they do it if they don't pass this. I think that's because I need to pass the object that is gonna call the function. So like here you pass the function address and then you pass the object. And then it stores on the callable class the information. Then at the time you emit the signal, it's gonna connect both. It's gonna call this function address. It's gonna get the address of the function and then call this function from this instance here. So this is the issue. So I guess what I can do is just create another, like create a physics slider here. But I'm pretty sure it's gonna fail because it wouldn't make sense to work. Because it doesn't make sense because it's not gonna cache this class here. So even if it connects here, there are moments, but I'm curious to see what's gonna happen on the editor the moment the slider changes. Because it's, I think probably what's gonna happen is just gonna crash because it's trying to call a function from a place that doesn't exist. Just a dangling pointer. Or it's not gonna work at all because it doesn't cache the signal whenever you do this from the code, from C++ code. I think it's probably the second case where it doesn't cache the signal here. Because there is no way for it to cache without using like a file. Unless you can use classDB or something like that, sure. It might cache because it has the, like when you connect the signal here, it's gonna store the, it's gonna change the state of the signal data, I think, inside of the object class for this node here. So since it's changing a property of this node, it might be able to store as a sub resource the signal. But I think once you try to call that, it's gonna crash. Because the other one, it wouldn't make sense because it's not a part of the scene. So just on the code here. So the moment that the editor runs, the thing is gonna try to emit a signal, but it doesn't have the function. So like once this emits the signal, it's gonna try to call this function from this class here, but the class doesn't exist because the editor builds everything from class DB. It's not even adding here. Maybe I forgot. I think I forgot, sure. No, I'm adding here. So this could be another problem as well. That is not gonna add nodes from the... I'm gonna try obviously to comment this one out and see what happens. I can't see a reason actually for not to be adding. As it should add here because the node doesn't exist. Oh, it didn't run. That's why it's not working. It didn't run. I need to run here. Letting a node is a child of another node. Child of another added from code doesn't work because it's adding the node to different pointers since when one of the nodes already exists. Add it again because the child node function just returns after checking the hash set for the node name. I think now it worked. Yeah, so now I add another physics. So obviously I can test both situations when I don't have the physics slider and when I have the physics slider. And this is interesting as well because I never added the physics slider directly because this is supposed to be part of the custom one. So it's interesting that the editor passes this option here on the constructor. So I want to see what happens when I change the value of this. It's going to crash the editor. Which I think it will, probably. Oh, it doesn't. Interesting. So it just doesn't do... It doesn't emit the signal. So if it doesn't crash, it means that it doesn't cache the signal. That's what's happening. And there is no errors as well. The errors that I have there is just the ones that always shows up. That doesn't have anything to do with the thing. So it's not cache. It doesn't cache the signals you create from code, which makes more sense, I think. So this one is the one that I just added from the editor. This one is the one that I added from the code. So it does cache the member variables, the values, the properties of the class, but it's not going to cache the signal. So I think I'm going to stop streaming now, and I'm going to think about this off stream. So there's two things. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do first, but there's two things to think about. One is to study the GD extension to see, like, to test before I do the node layout, to test if I can change the behavior of the nodes without adding a new class. If I can't do that, then I'm gonna have to think about another way to do that. Either I'm gonna change the only way that I can think about it right now is adding another member variable to the object class, for example, and then adding extra functionality to be able to do this. Or like to cache, like I can add functions as well to the object class that cache the whatever function I want to use, or some way like that, like basically changing the object class. But I think that's probably not going to be worth it. Yeah, but I think it's going to be the only way. But obviously I'm going to try to think about other ways. But the main thing is, so first studying GD extension and trying to make it work with the GD extension. And the other problem is this problem of how to deal with the differences, because you have nodes that are going to be added from the editor and nodes that are added from the code. And the ideal situation is when I can run the code without thinking about the version and whatever. So like the state of the code reflects the parts of the scene that were created from code, regardless of what happened on the editor. Then obviously, like, I think this is impossible to do in some situations because of the hierarchy of the nodes. So whenever you have a situation where you have mixed hierarchies, for example, I have a node that I added as a child of a node. So like I create this node from the code, and then I add another node from the editor, and then later on I add a node as a child of that one. Like on these situations, I would have to take into I would have to code for each specific case, I think, what to do, because then it depends on the project. So like the only way that I would be able to add the node to begin with would be to take into consideration what I did on the editor. But then it becomes problematic because let's say that later on you delete that node from the editor or remove the nodes around. Then the question is like, how do you update the code to reflect that state? Or you throw error messages to make sure that you understand, like it's easier to understand what happened. So for example, like I have this node, then I add another node as a child of this one through the editor, and then later on through the code, I add another node here. There would be like a node added from the code again. I think like the way that I'm thinking about down, it would still work because it doesn't matter that this node has this as a child. In order to add this one as a child, if this one is added from the code, I would have to take into consideration, like I would have to put on the function a condition that checks to see if this node has these nodes, and then I can add the other one. But then what happens that if later on I go on the editor and I move this node here, and then I delete this node, for example, the next time I run the node, the code, it would break because the previous code was expecting a state, but now the tree is on a different state. And I'm not really sure if it is possible to like this is the challenge, is thinking about what is the best way to deal with all possible situations of how to keep track of both things, so that you don't have to, like the code is as if you're building something from, like as if you're doing normal coding where you're just building every time and you can run every time and the state is the same. So I think the fundamental thing that is different is the caching. So, and I'm not really sure which way to go about it. So I'm going to stop streaming here. I'm going to think about this off stream. And I'm probably going to do the extension first because it's going to be easier. And then for now, what I'm going to do, like just solve this problem of the not being able to add two nodes as children is easier because, like I said, I can change the function here. But I'm more concerned about the overall thing because like there's a bunch of different situations where like different stuff can happen with this thing, with the state of the tree. And because, like I said, the more projects you add, the more difficult it becomes to change these things. I want to spend a bunch of time thinking about this now to make sure that I can think about the simplest way possible now to implement this. Simplest way and best way possible to deal with this relationship between things. And also to clarify on my mind, like I have to think about different scenarios on my mind of situations where you would create something from code and then change that stuff from the editor and then go back and change from the code again. And like situations like this, in order to try to come up with a solution that handles the most amount of cases and that it is the simplest possible solution. So I'm not really sure when I'm going to come back, but that's what I'm going to do. So after I deal with this stuff, then I can continue to, it's going to be after, like this is probably the hardest. Then after this, I think it will be a lot easier because yeah, all I would have to do for each project is just do the same that I did here. So you have an entry points, and then you loop over all the scenes, and then you have a control flow that's for each scene you want to change, you just put the if statement here, and then you put another entry point function. And then on this function, you can create the whatever tree you want from the code. Yeah. So